Thank you for joining us for this DSO forum to talk about our return to campus plan. Now, I want to let you know that there are over 300 folks on this call, all of us DSO employees, and I know that many of us have had lots of questions. We've been eager to hear more information about what fall will look like. Of course, we had the overall district-wide Alamo Together Summit, and Dr. Flores answered a lot of our questions. We had report outs from the task force that's been working diligently on the plan, but we wanted to get a little bit more granular, specifically for us here at the DSO, and talk about what this really means for each of us individually and as departments. And so we're going to have an overview from Linda Boyer-Owen to share with us some highlights of the return to campus plan as it pertains specifically to DSO. And then you'll hear from each of the vice chancellors or vice chancellor areas about what it means for you specifically and what it will look like for your departments. And then finally, Dr. Flores will join us to provide some comments and then, of course, to answer your questions as he always does on these forums. So if you have questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And now let's get started with Linda.
Good morning, everybody. Glad you're here. Glad so many of you are here. As we look toward fall, our DSO path is clear. We have a plan. We all are absorbing a lot of information these days about what fall will look like. And we're also blessed with having a lot of support from our college district and our leadership team. I hear that from you all every day when we do the rounding calls. You appreciate all the information and support that you're receiving, and I do too. So in terms of our plan, let me just sort of set a frame here to start out with, in case you haven't been reading all the information that's been coming your way. Our plan for fall is really not any different than what we're doing today. There are minor, small changes in it, but we will stay mostly remote throughout the fall semester here at DSO. Today we're running about 9% of employees working on site. And that's our target for fall also. We're not looking to increase numbers. What we are doing and have been doing over the last month, 6 weeks or so is ramping up a little bit at the workforce training centers as they get ready to support our community in some retraining efforts. But those employees are already at that level, and they're probably going to continue at that level and not be increasing. So that's how it will look for the rest of calendar year 2020. We know that we're going to go even more remote come Thanksgiving, back to probably level 5 in our plan, but we're going to operate at level 4 right now and through the end of this semester. So next slide. I want to take us back as we talk about the design of our plan for DSO for fall and just remind everybody what the overarching objectives have been for our COVID-19 plan from the beginning. I think I presented this to the board back in, I don't know, it was like first week of March or so. And our number one objective has always been and will always be to protect the health and safety of the Alamo College's district family. That's you, that's our students, that's the people we serve in our community. That's your families. That's who we're striving to make number one in our priority. Right behind that is ensuring continuity of instruction and then continuity of support services for students, current and future students, as we move forward. I want to say about number one, those of us on this call that were in the SLT meeting this morning, we had a very good conversation about health and safety. I feel very confident to say that's number one because we had a conversation about being a Baldrige organization and going above and beyond. We want to go above and beyond when it comes to your health and safety. So I want you to really feel that and know that that's a deeply held commitment within leadership here at Alamo Colleges across the college district. So let's go to the next slide. Another feature, core feature of our DSO design to return to campus this fall is the ACD pledge that we took. We as an institution joined with many other institutions in San Antonio to take that greater, safer, together pledge to our employees, our community, the people we serve, our students, to use face coverings, to practice physical distancing, to conduct temperature checks, to provide hand sanitizer, to follow CDC cleaning protocols, to implement contactless payment and processes whenever we can, and provide general COVID-19 awareness to everyone, which we're doing here today, and y'all have done a great job. I see that almost 98% of you have completed the infection control protocols training online just in the last month or two. So yes, we are being very attentive as individuals and as an organization to these principles. I want to say about some of these features. We know that these 7 features are very important to you. They're very important to our students. They're very important to us. About masks, thermometers, and hand sanitizers, I still get the question, do we have enough? And I have to say, I might be in trouble for ordering too much, but I don't think so. We have worked with all the colleges and all the players here in DSO to identify how much PPE and hand sanitizer and cleaning products are going to be needed for the whole academic year. And we have support of administration and the incident command to order all of that. We have a lot of supply on hand. We have a lot of PPE, disinfectant, and sanitizing materials on site already. And the orders are coming through finance, purchasing, risk management. Everybody's been really great about moving all of that along so that when we get to the first day of fall, we have, a stock of material that we need to keep everybody safe that will last us for the full academic year. And then our plan is every month we identify how much we use and we place an order to replace that. So we've always got a big pantry, if you will, of supply that we need to keep everybody safe and healthy. I also want to say, if you haven't been on site, we are doing temperature checks and health screens today. We're controlling access to the buildings. We're doing that at all the workforce training centers. We're doing that at the DSO building. We're doing that at the colleges. There are only certain places where you can get into our buildings. There are only certain buildings that you can get into, and to get in, you've got to pass through the screening station. At the station, we are checking to make sure, asking you if you have any symptoms, and showing people what the symptoms are. And we're asking to take your temperature. And so we have turned some people around because they didn't pass the screen and asked them to go home and check with their physician. We're not letting people through unless they pass the screen. At the screening stations, we also have PPE, excuse me, and hand sanitizer. So if anybody doesn't have it, they can get it right there. If you don't have it and you need it, you can get it right there. If you need it during the day, I would say please come down and get what you need from the screening station. We want to make sure that people always have what they need to be safe and well. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. which is this little chart that we keep showing you all. These are the risk levels 5 through 1. You remember we started at level 5 when everybody was remote. We moved up to level 4 in the summer, so that we could begin to bring students back on site to complete their CTE offerings. And we have run at level 4 all summer, and we will continue to do that in the fall. I see that Dr. Flores just joined us, and I'm right here on his quote, which is, fall will look very similar to what we've experienced in summer, with most classes being held remotely. Exceptions will be for CTE courses and some arts and sciences courses that may be required for face-to-face learning. So that's where we are today, and that's where we will be for fall. Let's go to the next slide. So when we really get into the detail, we have each of the vice chancellors here to talk about their areas, but just as a high level, we know that most of our operation at DSO will be remote. We know that we will still have IT, police support, risk management, and facilities personnel on site. They've been on site and they will continue in that mode. I talked to you about the education training centers over in EWD, and their folks are moving to probably go a little above the 9-10%, but they're authorized to do that, and their employees already know they're doing that. And finally, we may have some limited support from the Vice Chancellor for finance and administration areas to provide services to students at the colleges, and she's going to talk with you about that. What I want to say and make sure everybody understands is that everybody that might be working on site in the fall already knows. They've already been notified. So if you haven't been notified, you need to step back and support the folks who will be working on site. I think it's super important that we all appreciate our police, our facilities, our IT teams. Everybody who is on site is doing a phenomenal job. They're probably a little lonely because there aren't that many people on site, but we really want to thank them for all that they're doing, because without them, none of this would be possible. So let's go to the next slide. I want to reassure you, from an employee standpoint, we've received a lot of support from administration, from the board, in terms of getting support that we need to work remote. And we talked to the board about that on Saturday at the board retreat. This is a slide from that presentation that went to the board. And it's talking about reminding the board about all of the things that we've done and that they've approved for us as we started into working remote. And we have said to the board, we need to continue these things going into fall, and they were very, very supportive of that. So I want to say, that the big things that we've been concerned about as we go into fall: will we have technology allowances? Yes. Will we have the expanded EAP benefits? Yes. Will we continue complying with the Family First Coronavirus Relief Act? Yes. If we get to next year and we're still in remote and we come up to Fiesta holiday again, we'll know what to do because we've done it before. And so there's all kinds of features that we've laid in here in the last few months on the fly that work very well for everyone, and our commitment is to continue those for you. So if you're worried about that, you shouldn't. So I think that's it for me. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Snyder, who's going to tell you what's going on with her departments.
Good morning, everyone. Really thrilled to have this opportunity to talk to you. If we can go to the next slide. I wanted to go ahead and provide information on my team. I have two pieces of information to talk about our return to campus plan for the fall. So for those that are on site at our colleges that directly serve students, such as the student financial aid and the business office, we worked very hard to align with the other teams that are at the colleges for the fall, for the limited number of students that would be there on campus to have some level of support. And so what I've listed here is what is written in the college plans as far as limited student success core services would be provided on site. They're attempting to do that from a single building and by appointment only on Mondays and Thursdays between 8 to 5 based on personnel feasibility. So the intent is while we won't have a tremendous amount of students on campus, those that do need to engage with enrollment, our financial aid or business office, that there's an opportunity to do so. So for my team, student financial aid, the on-site, we do expect on-site personnel that would be available to go to the campuses on Monday and Thursday for an appointment to align with the others at the colleges. For the business office, we're still looking at exactly what our options will be based on the personnel feasibility of those are smaller offices, smaller number of employees. And so it'll either be identifying some limited folks that could still do an appointment in the fall, or we're looking at possibly a Zoom room where there would be the convenience for those students.
I came to the office today and I thought I brought.
I think, the Zoom room for student convenience for those students that are on campus that may already be meeting with some other departments and then have a question for the business office. That's an option we're looking at where they can step into a location and have that conversation right there with someone that might be remote. So we're still looking at that. We'll be talking about that at our instant command tomorrow morning to reach a final decision on our plan for the business office. For all the other student services for my team, on the other days, it's still providing virtual services, just like we do today remotely. During the enrollment season, we have extended hours, which we've listed here. So next slide. For my team that's at the DSO building, as well as at the campuses for others, facilities, risk management, our Department of Public Safety that will continue to work on site similar to doing now. I'd like to take a moment to do a special thank you to our Department of Public Safety, our facilities, our risk management staff who are going to work every day to care for others and to keep on-site employees and students safe. So I do want to take a moment to recognize those teams who have been our essential workers on the campus, in my team providing safety as well as some in IT. The other departments will continue to all work remotely with a few exceptions. We have facilities and fiscal services, about 4 employees that plan to spend a few days in the office per week. Student financial aid that are the back office of the DSO building, expect to be all remote. In HR and org development, there's a couple employees spending a few days in the office per week, in addition to the risk management folks that are on site. And then we have the student call center, which is actually more on site at our vendor site as opposed to the DSO building. So that's it for me, and I'll turn it on to the next Vice Chancellor.
Go ahead and go to the next slide. I'm Roger Castro. I'm here for Dr. Cleary, who's taken a much needed day off. He is in the office every day and just happened to schedule a vacation day when this forum's taking place, but he's given me his information. We've collaborated on this. First of all, IT is essential to operations, and we're already operating at level 4 with 8 to 10 staff members on site every day. You know, this includes our network administrators, our folks who deploy equipment, our help desk managers come into work on a rotational basis with 2 managers on site every day. And like I said, Dr. Cleary's in the office every day. All others are working remote and will continue to work remote. But given that, we will ramp up on-site support on anticipated demand. And right now our focus is making sure that we are ready for full remote delivery for the fall semester. And we've been working on that for a while now. We continue to work on that. IT security is essential. Some on-site presence is required, but we're attempting to make that remote as much as possible. For everyone else in Dr. Cleary's division, for all other divisional staff, they will be working remote, but may be asked to come on site as necessary. Again, it'll be an as necessary basis for them to return on site. That's it for performance planning and information systems. I'll turn it over to next Vice Chancellor.
Good morning, everyone. VCAS will continue to work as we have all summer. We will remain at level 4, so we will be basically in a virtual environment as we have been, as I've mentioned, all summer. We'll work closely alongside our partners in student success to continue providing support to our campuses operations and our DSO operations as it relates to academic success. We'll work closely in coordination with our high school partners. As you know, that's an ever-moving landscape as information comes from the governor and the state and CDC. So we're monitoring that closely, ensure that we're closely aligned with high school programs. We do have a department that does provide support to that activity. We'll continue supporting learning via online and our virtual environment. So kudos to our Alamo Online folks and Luke's folks. They have really worked hard to ensure that our faculty receive the supports that they need and our students have access to instruction, no matter what environment that we have. And they've continued to work. Many of them only just now being able to take a day or two off because they worked all the way through spring break to make sure we were able to do this. And we continue our weekly meetings with the vice presidents of academic success, as well as our counterparts in student success. So we'll continue to do our work, whether it's on site, which very few of us will be, but definitely continue to do our work as we always have done in this virtual environment. We really do appreciate the support of all of our colleagues, and faculty, and staff. And so I wish you all well, and anything that our department can do for you, you know where to find me. Thanks, everybody.
Good morning. I am Dr. Sammy Morrell, and I'll be briefing on economic and workforce development. So for all of our DSO level programs, operations, and support, we will remain in the remote environment for the fall. For the education and training centers, we opened up 4 of the 7 centers this summer, and we will continue to have those open in the fall. We are limited to 25% occupancy with the 6 feet distancing, so we are keeping occupancy in the buildings at or below 25%. Staff is going to be on site on a rotational basis as they are already. They are there to provide support for both our internal and external partners coming on site. We have already implemented a required re-entry request and approval process. We'll continue with that. We're committed to the ACD pledge. So we have the protocols in place to ensure the health and safety of both our staff, our students, and the partners that come into the facility, and we have PPE in place at those facilities already. And finally, advising will remain remote in the fall. So that's all for us, and I'll hand it off to Dr. Silva.
Good morning. My hope is that each one of you and your families are safe and well, and I send greetings from our student success team. My goal today, my role is to provide the update for the student success team and our hours for coming fall 2020. Our customers in student success, our customers, of course, are our students and our prospective students. Our customers are also our colleges, their personnel, their teams that we train, and a lot of information that we need to provide to the colleges, as well as our external partners, our community groups, and the individuals that we work with that we have to provide information for. So we will continue doing that as we have this summer and as we have transitioned from the spring semester and do it remotely. We will be working continuously, committed to doing all of the work that we have been doing, and that all of the messaging gets done and that all of the services get provided. So I listed here briefly all of those areas, our student onboarding and all that that entails for all of the support and all of the different programs in colleges, our CSI and our student information, our transcripts, our student leadership, our student district council, our district-wide advising, all of the wraparound services that we're doing with our student advocacy center, as well as for our foster youth, our career resources as we launch Alamo Experience, and all of the compliance and all of the support and special populations that we serve. So in a nutshell, we will continue doing all that we have done to the best of our ability. We're doing it remote, and on occasion we may be called to maybe do a particular project, but our plan for our team is to stay at home working diligently like we have been and totally committed to the success of our students. So that is my report, and now I think our next speaker is our Chancellor.
Thank you to all the Vice Chancellor areas for giving us that update. I think it's really important for us as employees to hear from our leadership and to understand the consistency of the overall plan with our DSO plan, with our unit plan. So I appreciate the information that you provided. And now I'd like to bring Dr. Flores forward to provide some comments, and then we'll go into a Q&A session.
All right, well, it's kind of, you all can see my messy office. So I hope everybody's doing well. And I also relay my my thanks for everything that everyone has done throughout the family, in particular DSO, because we know our job is to provide support and back up our colleagues, faculty, and staff, and most importantly, students at all of the colleges and the centers. And so thank you for everything that you have done since we transitioned remotely in mid-March, and continuing throughout the spring to ensure students cross the finish line for that semester, and then that they continue to take courses and remained on path in the summer. And most importantly, as we get ready for the start of an academic year, in which probably none of us would have imagined that we would start an academic year supporting 65,000 students and 5,000 of our colleagues actually remote. I know that the session and many of the college sessions are called the Return to Campus Plan, but I think a couple of things are pretty significant. One is, by and large, we're going to continue to operate in the way that we have. One is that about 90% of our operations will continue remotely. And that's what we've done basically during the summer months, during the summer term, with the vast majority of our instruction, except for career and technical education, being on the college campuses or at the centers. And that's because there needs to be the usage of equipment. The accreditation body has said that instruction by and large needs to be face-to-face. And so in those circumstances, we're abiding by public health protocols recommended by CDC and by Metro Health for Bexar County and San Antonio. So the other part is, I just want to thank all of the vice chancellors and their teams for working with each one of you about what the fall will look like. And I know there's a lot of questions. I know that I think like many of us, are trying to determine what your work schedule would look like in the fall. You may be balancing the needs of your parents, balancing the needs of your children, and trying to figure out what the school districts are also going to do. And I think that's part of the mix. And as we get ready for back to school, both at Alamo and for the school districts, I know this is a time in which we began to engage in August and finishing up whatever we had for summer, but also getting ready for the academic year. So I just want to thank each and every one of you, and ready for any questions or comments, Christy.
Wonderful. It's good to see you back in your office. I'm sure that it's nice to be back on campus. There are a number of questions that are coming in right now. One of them I've heard over and over, and I think it'd be a great opportunity for us to clear this up, is the return to campus plan and the percentage that we are at for fall, less than 10%. Is that something that will continue throughout the entire semester, or is there a possibility that that will change as the environment changes within the community?
That's a great question. And in fact, we discussed that during Executive Staff Senate meeting yesterday. Your two DSO representatives are Christina and Rudy. And so we've had a great conversation. First, I want to comment and just say that there are three wonderful mechanisms for feedback within Alamo Colleges and DSO. Obviously, conversations with your colleagues and clarification and support from your supervisor. The other is ESS. And then the third are the rounding reports that the HR team is doing and being able to contact 100 of our colleagues daily. And so those three things in particular. Going directly to the question, one of the things is, if you'll remember, we began to talk about return to campus at a ratio of about 25% for the fall. And then with the number of cases that were reported within San Antonio, also within Texas, we actually toggled that back to 10%. So we have a plan for the fall in which we are planning essentially to continue at that 10% on campus or at DSO and 90% remote. And then that will continue all the way to Thanksgiving. If we need to make a change, then we'll make a change, but we'll continue on that path. And we're always mindful. So we're looking at feedback from the rounding calls. We're monitoring closely the cases that are reported in San Antonio and Texas. Of course, we're in alignment with our community leaders, the mayor and the judge, clarification provided from the governor, and of course from Washington, looking at CDC, looking at the Center for Infectious Disease, looking at clarification provided from the White House and Congress. So all of those things to ensure that we're doing what we need to do. And I think the other part is just the support that has been provided from the board. So the Board of Trustees providing their support and alignment, and that alignment really has begins with the board, carries through our leadership team, but most importantly is part of where we're going as a family.
And then you mentioned going through Thanksgiving. So can you talk about how fall will wrap up?
So our intent, and we were looking at what other big institutions were doing, is that we would, and this is pretty much from the student-facing side, right? So for classes, that students, their last physical class would be on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And then after that, that they would finish out any projects, do any exams remotely after Thanksgiving. The One-Stop Student Success Center that is at each of the colleges, they will also, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving will be their last day. We know that we provide, as Roger mentioned, right, for IT, public safety, HR, scanning of transcripts and other things. Those will still continue by and large after Thanksgiving, but I think the important thing to remember is it's still about 10% of our colleagues that are on campus. And I think that that's significant. So our rhythm from the summer will continue into fall. If we need to make any changes, then we'll make those changes, and those will be aligned with information that we receive and guidance that we receive from elected officials and from public health authorities.
Okay, so we've been hearing in the news as the school districts create their plans to return to campus that there may be delays through September for K through 12, and there's still a lot of uncertainty around what fall will look like for elementary, middle school, high schools. And so employees are asking what options they will have if they have children who are not able to attend school because school will be held remotely. I know that's a plan that we've been working on, but can you touch on some of the work we're doing to establish policy or procedure around that?
Sure. I think most importantly, what we all do as parents is we look at information for our children or for family members. Is we're monitoring both what our employer is saying, And so we're looking for guidance from our employer. And then we're looking for communiques, whether they're emails or voicemails, for instance, right, that our school district is going to provide to us for our children. And then we bring those both together. And then we figure out the schedule for our kids and then our work schedule as part of that. Then we also look perhaps at commitments that our family, spouse, partner, family members have, parents within our household. I think that's the most important thing is putting that information together that you have, that your employer, in this case Alamo Colleges, is providing, reconciling and aligning that with clarification and guidance you're getting from your family member's employer and also from your child's or grandchild's school, and then putting that together in a plan. I know that's what we're doing in our household, right? And I know many others are doing the same thing. And I know there may be a little bit of hiccups or hurdles because that may change or one dynamic may shift. And so I just want to thank you for your proactive sense and your resilience and being able to align all of that together. I think what's most important is there will be guidance and clarification coming from human resources. And I want to go back, Christy, to the first question, which is the conversations that you have with your supervisor are so very important, and being able to figure out what the path ahead looks like. And I know we're only in late July, right? July 22nd. And there may be a little bit of angst that you're feeling. I know some of us feel that, but rest assured that that is going to all get clarified as decisions are made by the school districts, as we know what the city is and Metro Health are doing, and even the clarification from Austin and Washington, D.C., right? So all of this has been shifting in the last couple of weeks, but day by day and week by week, it's going to all come together. We think that the forum today is very important because what we're saying is 90% will continue remote, 10% will be on a campus at DSO or at a center. So we wanted to do our duty, right, and report to you all, this is what it looks like. You received from HR the form that allowed you and provided clarification on remote work circumstances, and if you needed to submit that form in particular. So we'll continue these conversations and we'll be back with that. So I'd just be mindful of what do these engagements look like? What are the emails that come from district, from human resources and communications? And then go from there. And if you have information, or then talk to your supervisor. If an HR partner reaches out to you with regard to rounding, then definitely that is one of a few topics that are asked specifically regarding this current period. I'm sorry if it looks like I'm veering off because I'm looking at my picture, but I should be looking straight ahead at the camera and the desktop. So,
thank you. So one of the other questions that I have is around some of the precautions that we're taking. So I know that we are going well above and beyond the CDC recommendations, but this is a very specific question, one that I haven't seen before, but it's asking if we'll be testing air, water, or sewer for COVID virus on the different floors to get a picture of safety. I don't know that that's something that I've heard much about within other organizations, but what are we doing to ensure that our employees are safe?
I would go back to, I think, two things. One is I would go back to what Linda had mentioned with regard to what the team has worked on. We've utilized an incident command structure, which is deployed for emergencies, right? This is definitely a public health emergency. And so that incident command structure is based at all 5 of the colleges and DSO, and then that kind of moves up to an overall focus. And so we have public health protocols that have been utilized. We signed on to the city's commitment, right, for Safer Together. And so what that means are the things that that have been told to us since really March, right? So ensuring that we wash our hands regularly, ensuring that that we wear a mask, right? Keeping 6 feet of physical distancing, really staying within our household, limiting contact with others, all of those things that are so very important. I think one of the things is we actually are just celebrating a year within the DSO building. We've worked out a lot of the kinks. We know that Broadway in particular is a high growth corridor, right? So there's a lot of construction that's going on within Broadway, even continuing to this day. One of the things that we experienced actually within early spring were some fumes, and that actually we determined was coming from construction on Broadway. And so that was actually not just isolated to our building in DSO, that was in the Broadway corridor, and that was with regard to the construction in the buildings and the construction on the road. So we have utilized public health protocols. We're gonna stay with those. I think if we need to do additional things, then we will definitely do that. We want to ensure that we provide for the safety of everybody at DSO, our colleagues throughout the Alamo College's family. If there is new information that comes in, just as I mentioned earlier, where we were planning on going to 25% physical on campus at DSO or the centers, and then we toggled back to 10%. If we need to make any modifications, if we need to do additional things, then we will definitely do so. Just want to let you know that we're mindful and receptive to what we need to do to provide for the safety of our colleagues, the safety of students, and ensure that we're able to achieve organizational ends.
And I did want to mention that I was getting some information coming in around this question that we do regular environmental testing and
Right.
that we are following CDC guidelines for what is most prudent in discovering this. And so as we follow the CDC and they release information about the types of testing we should be doing, then we'll begin to adapt to that. The other question that I have is really around an announcement that was made by the Texas A&M system that they are providing free COVID testing to students and employees. I know that's not something that we've had necessarily on our agenda, but I assume, and I may have to bring Linda on for this, that we have benefits available to our employees, and there are also resources available to students for testing. Is that accurate? And can
So let's bring the expert on for that. So let's bring Linda back.
Yes, and actually we've talked to a number of employees and family members who have gone for testing. They've used their health insurance benefits. It's covered by health insurance without any copay. It is free when you go to Metro Health. If we need to send you quickly, we have some contracts and we can send you also. There's no cost to employees, but we haven't said that we would be able to do what some schools have talked about, which is like mass testing every student at the beginning of the semester. We're so big and we know we don't have that testing capacity even in our whole community. And it would only tell us where everybody stands that day. 3-5 days out, the whole picture would change. So we're following the CDC and Metro Health guidelines to do the temperature screening for early identification of any possible cases that are emerging and getting those folks quarantined into a physician, tested and cleared medically before they come back on site. And that's what we do with students also. Yeah, they're getting tested and it's not costing them anything.
Thank you for that, Linda. The next question that I have is around preparing for the fall. So there are lots of folks who, Dr. Flores, you came into your office and you see things that you haven't seen in 3 or 4 months. And so our employees are faced with some similar situations where they may have left thinking that they were going to be out for a week or two, and now it's been months. And so what kind of accommodations can be made for employees to have access to their office to gather things that they need in preparation for fall or in preparation for the next day?
Sure. So I think one of the important things is that we're working on that. So by vice chancellor and unit, right? So each of the vice chancellors working with their teams have determined the return to work, who will continue to be on site or who will be on site as we prepare for and go through the fall. The other is if there are things that you need, then that needs to be a conversation with your supervisor so we can put you down on the list, right? So you're going to come into DSO the next morning, be able to do I know Roger has done daily, and I've done somewhat frequently, where you get your temperature check. So by usually public safety, and then you're able to go to your to your office. And so I think that's the important thing, is just communication, to be able to be in conversation with your supervisor so that they will know they can put you down on the list so that you can come in if you need to be able to pick something up. I know we all have comforts that we've utilized within our office, whether that's a 1 screen or 2 screens or a really nice printer or other things, right? So that we got used to, and I know that we've kind of been able to adapt being at home and working off of a laptop perhaps and a cell phone. But I think it's just back to, Christy, back to just conversation with your direct supervisor. And so that can be put down, and then we can be ready to see you the next day. And the reason we want to do that and to know that you are anticipating coming in is because we want to be able to keep the occupancy at a certain level, right? So we need to have your visit planned and coordinated to be able to do so.
Okay, and I have just one more question, surprisingly. It's really about how we're taking care of those employees who are essential workers that have not had the opportunity to work remotely. I know that we have some programs and plans in place. This particular question's referencing what HEB is doing, or Sam's or Walmart, but can you talk about some of the things that we're doing really in appreciation to and in support of those folks who are staying on campus?
Sure, I think I really want to give a shout out to everyone for what you have done since mid-March. Actually, preparation at the beginning of March for us to move remotely. We knew it was coming, we just didn't know when. But as we left for spring break, right, many folks weren't able to return to their office. I think the other part is that we continue to back up students and that they are able to cross the finish line. We did that in the spring. We were able to reallocate $8 million to ensure that they were scholarship for up to $500 for unpaid balance in the fall and the spring. And then they received up to, dependent upon how many courses they took during the academic year, up to 3 courses as part of an expanded summer momentum program. That was really internal savings of $10 million that we utilized. In addition, the telecommunications allowance that's been provided for all full-time and part-time, portion of part-time employees. The extension, as Linda mentioned, of EAP to part-timers, which is really significant. The vacation buyback, in which you were able to sell vacation to be able to plan perhaps for unmet needs or emergencies that you've had during the current period, or perhaps have a little cushion in preparation for the summer or the fall. All of those things that have been done actually, since mid-March. So those are pretty significant organizational changes. I think the other part is just looking at what we largely have called essential folks. And for us, that is, I would say it's everybody, but essential folks within the family. What we've used it over the past few months have been our IT personnel, public safety, and then now it will go to faculty members who have been on campus during the summer to ensure students completed courses, and then also folks that are going to be either on a regular or basis for the One Stop Student Success Center. I think the other part is the budget that was passed on Saturday. So there are a lot of dynamics at play within certain sectors, and specifically within higher education in particular. We're fortunate that the community college sector is much more resilient just because of the efficiencies that we built in. And we're actually fortunate that Alamo Colleges within the community college sector has that within our DNA, right? So most importantly, the budget that the board approved on Saturday provides for support for all full-time benefited employees this coming year, meaning that we're gonna stand by all our full-time benefited employees during this fall and this coming spring and summer, all the way up to summer of 21, and provide for the large portion of our part-timers. The continuation of the telecommunications allowance, the extension of EAP to part-timers, the vacation sellback or buyback will continue this coming fiscal year. So everything that we've utilized this year is budgeted to continue into next year. And really that's the support that we're going to provide to 3,000 plus employees going forward. Higher ed is in a bit of a change this year. And I think the other part is we've also budgeted for increases in IT. We are budgeting for training of faculty and staff to continue to work remotely. So all of those things that have been significant during the last 3 months will actually continue forward into the next 12 months plus. And we're going to support all of our full-time benefited employees and the vast majority of our part-timers, which will take us up to close to 5,000 folks this coming fall 20, spring and summer 21.
And thank you, Dr. Flores. And then going back to that question just around how we're providing support to those folks who are on site and have been so, I wanted to bring Roger Castro into the situation because he really has been there day to day and working with the employees that are there. So Roger, can you tell us a little bit about your experience being on site and if you feel supported, if your teams feel supported, what kind of accommodations have been made?
Yeah, I'm real comfortable working on site, and I know my staff is. Again, you know, we probably only have 8 to 10 people here working on a daily basis, and we rotate them in and out. And when we have 8 to 10 people, IT is split over 2 floors, so we have ample, you know, social distancing between employees. But our job, we realize our job here is to provide support, you know, to the entire Alamo enterprise. So we, you know, we make ourselves available, whether it's in person here at DSO or, you know, using Skype or Zoom or email to, you know, communicate with the broad mass of people who work at Alamo. I don't see a lot of people, you know, during the course today because there's not a whole lot of IT folks here, but the folks that are here are necessary. So I've got to throw out, you know, kudos to Jesse Martinez, Nathan Childs, and Laura Mateo, and Veronica Bonebrake, Darren Woods, Emmanuel Murzocki, folks who are committed to come in, provide support and service to, you know, to the folks who need, you know, service and support. Folks who have questions that are related to the work that you do, you know, in support of others at colleges or the students at large.
Okay, thank you, Roger. And I know that you're also, I've seen a couple of the meals that you guys get on campus. So I know that's one of the small perks as well, right?
That is a perk. You know, thanks to Diane and her staff for making that available to us. I know that, you know, my staff appreciates it.
Thank you. And then Dr. Flores, I have one last question. And then of course you provide closing comments, but it's really around the economic downturn and what we're seeing in the economy, both in the United States and here in San Antonio. What should we expect? I know that during the budget conversation, at the budget meeting, there were lots of questions from the board around that, and you have contingencies in place. Can you talk to us a little bit about that before you close?
Sure, Christy. I think one of the things that's so important for the budget that the board approved Saturday is that it's $387 million, right? It's just up by $2 million from this current year. There are a couple of things. One is it provides for support of all of our full-time benefited employees and the vast majority of our part-timers. The other part is that 2 things. One is we district and Alamo Colleges has a savings account, right? And so that's called our fund balance. And so we actually have a savings account that has about $12.5 million in there. We didn't plan on utilizing that this coming year because when the legislators reconvene in Austin in January of 21, they're going to confront a $4 to $5 billion budget deficit. There may be some cuts to our state appropriations, which is only about a fifth of our total operating budget. So if they do that, then we want to be able to then utilize our savings account of $12.5 million going forward for academic year 21-22 and 22-23, right? So two things. One is the budget's going to support all full-time benefited employees. The other part is we have a reserve in there that's already built in of $2.5 million. And then we're not going to utilize our $12.5 million savings account until the following 2 years because we don't know what's going to occur. And since we're proactive, right, we want to be prepared. We want to prepare for that contingency to be able to do so. I think the other part is, you may have read in the news, is that since we are critical to the prosperity of San Antonio, Bexar County, and the region, is that Alamo Colleges is the main provider of workforce development training for the city and the county. So they've appropriated about $100 million of their federal CARES monies for workforce development. We're going to receive the vast majority of that, actually close to 30 million that's coming from the city. That's half of their allocation. And that's going to be to train 5,000 not employees, but 5,000 of our neighbors, family, or friends who are unemployed. And so that's coming forward. And now there's a conversation about the 1A sales tax that is going to be utilized for at least 3 to 4 years. If it passes, if it is up for a vote in November, that would go to workforce training, not only for graduating high school seniors. It's almost like an expansion of Alamo Promise, but also for the 150,000 folks that are unemployed. So one is we're going to provide for our family members, right? For all of us, all of our colleagues in the budget. We have contingencies in which we, within the budget and also within our district savings account. And then we're helping others. We're helping others in working with the city and the county and other entities for workforce training. And we see that that could be a long-term need going 3 to 4 years if that comes to a ballot to vote in November. And if that's approved, that could be 100 to 125 million that's directly invested into workforce development. It wouldn't only be Alamo, it also could include UTSA and A&M. But by and large, we are already the largest provider of higher ed and training right now in our region. So I think, Christy, those are the things that I close with. One, just to thank each and every one of you for what you've done from March all the way through to support each other, to back up our colleagues at the colleges and the centers, to ensure that our students could cross the finish line for a semester that none of us would have imagined in the spring. The other is that they continue on path to graduation in their degree plans, that they're able to re-enroll in the summer, and that's what the Keep Learning Plan was all about. And then most importantly, that they'll re-enroll for the fall, because you all were in the midst of ensuring that we can continue to serve them. We have about 28,000 more students that we expect to come in, and that doesn't even include the 5,000 students that are going to come from workforce development and planning with the city. And then the other part is that we are on solid footing right now going forward into next academic and fiscal year, and that we also have some contingencies planned, like our district savings account that I mentioned earlier, for the next biennium to prepare for things. And so if there's any place I'd want to work, it would definitely be at the Alamo Colleges District. And so I just want to thank each and every one of you for your service. I want to thank our team, because I'm affirmed by how resilient each and every one of you are. I'm affirmed by the success stories of our students who persevere amidst multiple challenges to be able to cross the finish line. And I'm heartened by the support that we receive from our Board of Trustees and the alignment for their vision to ensure that student success is tantamount to who we are and what we do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Flores, and thank you to each of our panelists, all of our vice chancellors, and the others who stepped in to assist and answer questions. And thank you to the nearly 400 people that joined us today. I hope everyone has a great week. And as always, we will send this out, the recording out, and there will be an opportunity for us to answer any questions that we didn't get to today. So thank you again, and we'll see you at the next Alamo Together Summit.
Thank you all.